Strengthening the cultural bridge between Africans and African Americans. My name is Ebony Tyson. Just want to thank you all so much for tuning in. So next, which actually it flows perfectly. What do you know about colonialism, and how did that affect your family and country? Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I might be short this time, so I will just leave my sister because when it comes to colonialism, this has to deal with geographic and all those things. So the only thing I know is just that we got independence in 1968. That's what I know about colonialism.
Okay.
And our country were unable to perform as they wish because we end up calling you umlung because it was you guys who offered us job here in our country. So that's why it begins, not that it begins today. It begins back then because it was a white man who offered job for Swazis while they were colonizing them. And they also pressed them somehow, such that they won't be able to perform or do something as they wish. You know, that was our colonialism. It was British or something, but I hope my sister was going to emphasize this and going to give more details on this because I really don't understand this. I think it's been a couple of years I last seen this stories, you know, because I think it's from grade 3. It's been a long time ago. But sis, I think you can just emphasize on this and also give more details.
Well, thank you for sharing what you know. And being transparent and saying, hey, I don't really know, but this is what I know.
Which is also okay. I think, So colonialism, you know, it's so interesting we're having this conversation and it's 2024 and we're still dismantling and talking about like settler colonialism and dealing with settler colonialists who insist on taking land. So long and short, there is a dictionary definition for what colonialism is, as well as neo-colonialism, as well as, you know, all the stages of colonialism that you'll have. But what I want to say before I start defining terms and creating frameworks is that I believe that colonialism is deeply tied to capitalism. And these two systems are heavily evil because they both degrade not just the identity, but the person as well as the land. Now, there's something that I believe in, and this idea of the occupation of land physically is also the occupation of the land spiritually. I'm not going to get into my own spiritual beliefs, but when you understand that when we came into this life, now this might sound very like, you know, like, what do you call it? Like lovely and colorful, but so my ideology of like if you gave Tandega a pen to say create a perfect world, you know, I would most likely draw in line with what I understand to be creationism, you know, the concept of creationism. So people live on earth to inherit the earth. And what inheriting the earth is not conquering it. But colonialism is conquering the earth. So it means I'm not simply just going to take your land because I want to dwell on it, but I will take your land, make you work the land, and give you nothing in return. I will use your historical knowledge of the land to gain maximum profit from it, which I will not only not distribute with you, but I will give you close to nothing for your generations to survive. I will systemically design places where you cannot even breathe, walk, or move. And all that can erupt in those places is violence, heartbreak, and no longevity at all. So these are all very synonymous with both colonialism and capitalism. And I don't want to differentiate them because with capitalism, I could really go on forever. But when it comes to the effects of colonialism, there is no family that wasn't affected by it. Because when you say to a nation, hey, I'm here and I would like to conquer your land and take it, you create fear and you disperse people, right? So the identity issue, in as much as, yes, you've described it, it also exists for people who live in Africa. Because when your land is taken away from you, you don't have anywhere to go. So you move and you migrate, right? So if you go to the National Museum, it's called Umsamo. There's a beautiful story on the wall about our migration from the central part of Africa down into the southern parts of Africa. In fact, in the literature of the Khoisan, they refer to us as settler colonialists in their literature, as the Nguni tribe, right? So we move down because this land is being taken away from you. And so you disperse and you lose your family, right? So the continuous colonial ideologies that are in line with capitalism, even though we've gotten this idea of freedom, or like at least this page where it says, oh no, like, you know, you guys are free, you don't exactly know the extent to where you come from. And that's because you've lost the majority of the people that you have traveled with. A lot of them died along the way. A lot of them you won't ever know again. A lot of the things that perhaps belonged to you and your generations, simply based on the fact that you exist. Not because of this idea that there's a piece of paper to tell you that I have the title deed to this land, but because you've grown up there. All of these things no longer exist anymore. So we grow up, and there is this beautiful professor, I love her mind, Dr. Kainsile Chabalala Litchfield. It's a threefold surname. And one of the things she teaches about is, in her lectures, she'll always tell you that the young people of this generation, the reason why they are as stuck as they are is because they wake up every day with no sense of identity, because they are landless and they are jobless and they have nowhere to go. So you live in a country where my family now has no ownership of land. If I want land, I must buy it, which is, again, under capitalism. I'm a black African Swazi living in Eswatini with no means to be making enough money to be buying pieces of land anyway. So it's a systemic thing, you know. So it does still affect my family even to this day, because any repurchase of land where, again, like I defined in the beginning, I must occupy physically as well as spiritually, I will have to purchase back from whoever. So it's like it's a continuous thing, systemic, and colonialism is very much evident, even though, like you said, we gained independence in 1968. But if the offshoots of that are still existent, I mean, our syllabus teaches how to farm plants that are not even conducive for the land. That's colonial history. You have textbooks that will tell you that the mode of dressing is khaki shorts and a khaki top. We're in 2024, but that's still the literature in policies, you see. So it's like, it's a continuous kind of understanding and shifting of, yes, I mean, the books say we got our independence in 1968, but what exactly is this freedom? What is this freedom? Tangible evidence, where is it of my freedom? So yeah, it's affected us. I'd say my family, maybe just say black people in Africa or Eswatini, like this, were dispersed. You don't know everyone. You won't ever know anyone again. Your sense of identity is also slightly shaken, I'd say. So,
wow.
Yeah. Such
That
a
was
powerful
so well
speech.
said too. Thank you for both of you for sharing that. And 1968 wasn't that far ago.
When you think
far
about
away,
it,
you know, it really wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. Wow. I'm just taking it in, and that's something else. Okay, so for our for us African Americans, a question to piggyback off of that is, what does colonialism mean to you, and do you think that colonialism still exists in your country? Why or why not? So, do you mind if I go first?
Go for it, sis. Go.
All right. So, okay. So the dictionary definition of colonialism from Oxford is the policy or practice of acquiring full or partial political control over another country, occupying it with settlers, and exploiting it economically. That's the definition. My definition, which is similar to what Tandega was saying, is a hateful and greedy system that seeks to diminish the cultural, physical, mental, familial, financial, and spiritual well-being of a group of people or ethnic group to financially and egotistically benefit or advance another group of people. So yes, neocolonialism is still real in America as well. And at every place that I've traveled and saw black people in the world, I have seen remnants of it. In the U.S. case, definitely. So social injustice is still real. Gentrification, which is the process whereby the character of a poor urban area, poor by their standards, of course, but there's a lot of power in everywhere, a lot of levels of that, but that's a whole nother story. So it's a process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by typically white privileged people moving in, improving housing, and attracting new businesses, typically for their people, and displacing current inhabitants, which are people of color, and most of the time people of color in the process. So that's what gentrification is, just a little sublet. But also you see inequality in pay. You see food deserts in black communities where, coming from, in the community where we're from, Sambulo, like in terms of food deserts, like there's no, like fresh fruits and vegetables like that availability of that is not there. The healthy food is just junk food and stuff that's just basically killing us. Disproportionate incarceration of black males, especially in prisons and jails, and exploitation of financial gain from it. White folks still have more money by default and generational gain from their predecessors who became rich from slavery and exploitation of people of color. And I'm not saying this for every white person or for every black person, but majority, yeah. And still making billions off of slavery. Still making billions. Well, yeah, that too. But billions off of black-derived inventions and backs of anyone in the middle or lower economic class, whitewashed education, using media to re-implement negative depictions of black people as a means to mentally manipulate your social status and value as a black person. And I can go on and on. But yeah, so that's my take on that.
Yes,
I mean, colonialism, it still exists for sure, with not only within the context of Africa, but on the global level as well. I was on TikTok or YouTube and I heard a Rasta say, when the British left India, they left their technology. But when the British left Africa, they left tea. And that statement made a very clear distinction of what colonialism can do for certain countries, right? When you push it out, you can either thrive with what the end results and you make do with it, such as what India is doing, or you could leave the remnants of something that is so casual and still be willing to accept the conditions of colonialism. And I think it's very clear, maybe not within the context of Eswatini, but to the larger continent of Africa, of ongoing colonialism that's still going on. Whether we're talking about the DRC, whether we're talking about Rwanda, or whether we're talking about the effects of immigration from Africa to other various nations. We're seeing colonialism still leave a horrendous mark on black and brown faces. And so that's something that we can clearly see. But I think when we think of the context of colonialism in America, in the U.S. and the States, it's hard. It's hard because it's a difficult thing to say. We can state it, we can say it, but when you try to explain the details in the meticulous way it affects people, ears go deaf. And so how do you reach people by talking about colonialism that doesn't harden their hearts, but makes it an open conversation? And I think that's where we are struggling with in the U.S. We cannot have the dialogue without fierce white fragility always on the wall. Oh, no, they're talking about what the white people have done. I didn't do that. Well, no one said you did it. What we're saying is we can see from the history, we can see from our events, we can see from what our textbooks have said. Because clearly we didn't write those textbooks. Mac Miller, if we can even say the name, they write the textbooks that our schools purchase. And then we learn it from our teachers. But again, from colonialism, it trickles down into what you know. Who wrote the history books? Do we know about the Tulsa Massacre? Do we know about the various black communities back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s that were flooded in the southern states? Or about the events that happened? Let's talk about New York for real quick. Like, Times Square was not Times Square. Times Square used to be farmland. It used to be a swamp. But what is it now? And who had that land first? It was black Southerners who went north and had land in New York, and then they took it away. So colonialism has its deep fingers in so much of our history and so much of what we're experiencing now when it comes to the backlash. And I just wish that there was more of a dialogue. And in my notes, I just really want to say, and I think, Sis, you said it really on the top, but to destabilize and destructure, that's colonialism. And so it destabilizes our families. It destabilizes our languages. It just destabilizes how we leave a footprint for the next generation. And I think for, at least within our American context, our footprints are muddled. There's a footprint here, a footprint there. And so there's no one direction. There's piles of footprints going each and every way because we can't get our thoughts together. The intelligentsia is missing. And I wonder where it is. Who said it? It was Frederick Douglass said the 10%. We're looking for the 10%. And I, like 2024, and we're going to say this in 2025, 26, 2035, 2050, where is the 10% of the black population that's going to make that change, right? I don't know yet. Maybe it's a fable, maybe it's a myth that he had in his head one day, but I don't see it yet. Or maybe they're incarcerated already. I don't know.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you, bro.
And to piggyback off of that, I think when I was explaining this, I was a little bit on fire, y'all. So excuse me on that. But I love how you all how it all came together and explaining that because you're giving the viewers these different modes of how you see colonialism and how that's still an issue, because you'll hear people say, oh, colonialism or slavery was so long ago, get over it, or it doesn't affect me. Even black people, you'll hear like, it don't affect me, I got money, or I got this, it don't affect me, but it still does. It still affects you, and it's not something that we're bringing up to like be a mood changer or to dwell on, a hurtful past, but we have to know the past in order to get to our future. You got to know the past because, if not, then it will continue to repeat itself in different forms, which we're seeing. And you got to know where you came from to know where you're going, not staying there. Nobody wants to stay in that space, but that's just wisdom, right? To know, how to move to be more progressive, right?
Yeah.
Could I actually? I actually have some. I just thought about this concrete evidence, right, of colonialism in the U.S. It just came to me. So let's also talk about how we enveloped Hawaii and Alaska within our American and the U.S. context into our Constitution. And then we can also talk about Cuba, right? And then we could talk about all these other islands that U.S. Polynesia. And I think U.S. Polynesia is a very interesting one, right? These are various chains of islands that had their own law, their own liberty, their own land. And somehow we took it from them. whether by crook, religion, etc. How is that ours? Those are their own indigenous people, their own indigenous language and traditions, yet it is within our context of what we claim as our land. And so that's another way of how colonialism has affected American history as well, of claiming these lands. And I think especially with the events happening in Hawaii right now, like people are still fighting for their rights and their customs to stay relevant, but they are slowly being washed away. So how do we prevent that? And so those are just other ways that colonialism has affected the U.S. as well.
Yeah, on a broad scale.
Yes.
Thank you for that. All right, y'all. So we're almost wrapping up here in our back and forth questions. Can we just take a second to just breathe? Wow, that was a lot to just take in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I think when I first got to my HBCU, my historically black college, and really, getting that information and learning about this, I'm like, man, I'm mad, but I'm wore out, because you'll be mad all day, really just getting this information. It can be emotionally taxing, emotionally exhausting when you're just seeing this and you don't know, okay, how do I move on from this? Like, it's all this information about us being, killed and taken from, and, all of this stuff. How do I move forward with that? And it's still a question I don't really have. I guess, just really walking in your truth and what God has given us. And one thing that I do know is that, and I can only speak for where I come from. I don't know about no other races. I'm sure they got their own, they good people of love. But us as black people, I feel like we are people of love. Like I've never seen love being manifested in so many ways, through music, through art, through television, through just anything. Like the way that we demonstrate our love, even being here in Africa, you're seeing it in this communal environment. Booty, Sisi, Mage, Nababe, Gogo, just that love and that embrace. I can feel it. And just even we just have that, no matter all the traumatic thing and the messed up stuff we've experienced, nothing will take away from the love that we have, and it will be nothing like it. It's nothing like it. So I just wanted to add that in there, just really quick. But okay, so back to us, just to wrap this up, on the question in for our Emaswati. If you could just briefly say, one of you could say this, what did you think about Black Americans before? So before you even met a Black American, what did you think about them before, and have your thoughts changed? Or what did you see on television or media about Black Americans, and have it changed? Or yeah.
Okay. Firstly, if I've ever met Black Americans, I thought, truly speaking, are very proud people. Yeah, because I feel like they've got their own legacy, because they are able to act, and they've got a lot of ways of backuping their own economy. So I thought the one will be reliable to someone else. I just thought that they can't even help maybe Africans. I will just combine all Africans, with some certain and necessary things, such as the scholarships and all the things, because they've got their own economy. So they won't be reliable to someone as if they need something as well to them. So I thought they are just the people who think for themselves. But I was then surprised. Yeah, I was then surprised meeting someone who's like, because I've ever said this before, I've ever mentioned it, and I'm still emphasizing, you are the first person to meet. You were the first Black American to meet. So you you did prove me wrong on all what I've been thinking maybe for all that couple of years, because you've come up with the real you, and I thought you've already represent all your membership where you came from. So I feel like what you are doing to us is the very same thing they can do as well to others. So I'm just sharing facts. I thought you are very, very, very selfish people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that. But like I've said, that you did prove me wrong. I think that's what I can say for now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And thank you for I feel like a better
I
person.
thought you were just the people who
Yeah.
just think for themselves.
I don't know. I think more optimistic than I am in general. So what I mean by that is, for one, I think I need more data to form an opinion on a collective. I don't have enough yet.
Okay.
But from what I do know, let me just say, maybe from a social kind of interactive point of view, I've met you guys now, which is great and awesome. I think you guys are amazing. I do like to title continents with their problems. So like not problems, but like what I often see, right? So Europe, I'd also say, has a guilty conscience, a Christian guilty conscience. That's Europe. And then America has arrogance, the American arrogance, you know?
Yeah.
So there's that. I think when you're raised and bred in America, you are taught you can, like American dream, like I said. So you do go out into the world with this very capitalistic point of thinking, divide, conquer. I must make the most of wherever I am. I must be very impactful. I must ensure that I get everything done, right? Now, one of my biggest criticisms of a lot of films that show a lot of the Black history is the white savior at the end. I always have a problem with that, because I'm just like, no, but you see, that's the problem for me. You know, this consistent ideology of the need for a savior within like the African context. So there's this really recent splat that happened on Twitter. I don't know if you guys know Tyler. Make me sweet, make me water. Yeah. So she goes on TV and she says, "Oh," then they're like, "Oh, hi Tyler, where you from? What's your, tell us what your ethnicity is, your race. Tell us more about yourself." And Tyler says on live TV in America on the red carpet, "Hey, my name is Tyler and I'm colored." And the whole mess ensued online.
Yeah.
Like, African Americans said, there's actually no way you can come to our country and disrespect our history like that, you know? And I said, okay, that's also like, in as much as maybe they don't know, but that's also the American arrogance of thinking your story is the singularly most important story in the world, when it's not. Colored in South Africa means a completely different thing. It's not race, it's more like a group ethnicity of, okay, yes, this is the group that they refer to at the point in time. But, when you're wearing that veil of, I know everything, because I have the best education system in the world, I have the most money, my dollar is leveraged against every other currency.
Exactly.
You never believe that you can be, on a very principle level, fundamentally and factually incorrect. So I think for me, that was a huge, like, it's very nice to be on social media, because you get to have a lot of case studies on human behavior in real time. And even though Twitter is a very large minority, you still get like insight into that, just to say, this thinking pattern. So I wouldn't really say that my views have changed. Actually, they've changed for the better, because I'm able to say, this is just a person with their own struggles. They go through their own things. So we've had this beautiful discussion where I understand more about the Black American struggle of existence, as well as you understand more about my African struggle of existence. And to say that these are two completely different worlds. So I have more grace, more understanding. To say, to be quite fair and honest, from what they know, this is the truth. And it's really hard to take back an agreement you said and have with yourself and form another agreement.
Yeah.
Especially if like you're in your 20s and this is what you've known to be true your whole life. You have a resistance to that new information coming in. So I'd say my views have changed, though, I mean, obviously from a cultural point of view, we're always going to have these differences a little bit, but no animosity whatsoever. I just think we all have different experiences in life. So it's a process. I'm always going to get to know more about Black Americans based on my exposure to them, fairly and truly. So, yeah.
Please be a part of the conversation by commenting below, and sharing and spreading the knowledge is the first step to strengthening the cultural bridge between Africans and African Americans. Again, my name is Ebony Tyson, and we are sending you love all the way from Eswatini, Africa. Let me get some snaps. Woo!